Hello, it's June 25th, 2023, midday. Thought I'd do a little walk through the garden since it's been a couple weeks or so since I've done one. Things have been real dry here. You'll see as we go around that the grass looks basically yellow and dead. Here's a Nanking cherry bush. It's got a few fruits on it, but almost all the fruits have damage from some kind of bug, probably plum cuculio or something. There might be the odd one on there that's not damaged, but I have a lot of problems with these now at my garden, so I'm not as excited about this species as I used to be. Sorry if there's a little wind noise today. The breeze is blowing. We're supposed to get more rain later this afternoon. We got a little bit of rain last night, which was awesome because we've been in a drought for a month or more, and so it's very, very welcomed. This peach tree here has a few peaches on it, and I've done a little bit of thinning here and there, but I probably should do a little bit more thinning. A lot of these fruits will have damage. You can see that one's got damage. This one is so small that it's not going to do anything, so it falls off on its own. Probably a lot of damage, not a good crop this year on account of the drought, but we'll see. I might get a couple edible peaches here and there, you never know. Yeah, this gummy stuff, it's kind of a similar product to the gummy stuff that oozes out of the bark when they're injured. So I'll show you some grafts that I've done. Have done a lot of grafting this year, and some with some good success. This one is not a success yet. This is Illinois everbearing mulberry. Just did this about a week or so ago. It was a regraft. The first one I did, the signwood was old and it didn't take. So this is the rootstock here, and the rootstock has been damaged by probably rodents or oh no, I'm sorry, this is Jocelyn, not Illinois everbearing. Damaged by rabbits or rodents. Jocelyn is a mulberry that I found at the Secretary of State's office in Paw Paw, and it's almost everbearing, I would say. It bears from mid-June until at least late August or something. This here is the Carmine Gumi, and it's full of fruit now. The fruit is good and most of it's ripe. I've been kind of saving this, not picking too much because I've got garden tours. I'm having another one Tuesday. Today is Sunday. But yeah, these look good. I put a net over it because if you don't do that, you probably won't get any fruit. The birds have been pretty ravenous this year, and so have the deer. Did not have any service berries to harvest on my trees this year. Last year they were just loaded. This year the fruit was so small and dry that it didn't ever size up, and the birds got it, a week or two before it was ripe anyway. So you can see a wildflower garden way over there where my great-grandparents' house used to be. That's got a lot of lanceolate coreopsis blooming right now. Looks nice. The hedgerow seeing some drought stress here and there. It's like a grapevine that died. Nine bark is showing some stress there. Wild rose will be flowering in a couple of weeks, it looks like. There's a Nanking cherry. Service berry's been clipped by the deer, so dogwood, red osier dogwood's been clipped by the deer. So these are in the awkward adolescent phase where they've got to get past the deer, and that'll take a few years probably if you're not excluding the deer somehow. Great growth on autumn olive. Looks like the deer have been eating the pokeweed a little bit. So as we pan here, let's see, what do we have to look at? Romania quince has a few fruits that are sizing up. Looks like I'll have more than the 3 that I had last year. Might have half a dozen or more this year. And I've grafted this onto some wild pears, and we'll see those in a little bit. Speaking of grafts, this is a graft of Nijiseki Asian pear onto calorie pear, and it's grown a lot. I put this cage on it because the deer really like that tender growth of anything. You can see it's got like 3 trunks that are growing. I think this was like the terminal bud piece of scionwood, but maybe you can see the grafting in there by my finger, maybe not, but it's healing up nicely. And then another graft over here. This was a late graft of Illinois everbearing mulberry, and it's taking. That's probably also a whip and tongue graft right there onto a wild mulberry seedling. And these, when you get scionwood, a lot of times that's scionwood that came from part of the plant that was ready to flower, or fruit. So I've had to keep pinching off the little flowers that are forming on these because I don't want to ask too much of that young scionwood. So this part of the hedgerow looks pretty clipped off. The deer have been working on it. This is a cultivar serviceberry, and it looks like the birds have discovered it. This is Regent, small. I don't think it ever gets very tall, maybe 6 or 8 feet max, but so far it's less than waist tall. And it's got a few sprouts, suckers coming out, and I've caged a couple of those. So I may get to taste a couple of those this year. Some pawpaws here. I did graft a couple branches of a few pawpaws, but that was just about a week or 10 days ago. So those are not leafing out yet. We'll see if they take. But here's one called Davis onto a stem of this. And yeah, time will tell. I didn't, chop any pawpaws off at the ground and totally take my chances, because if it doesn't work out, I've got, other branches that take the lead there. Wildflower garden looks decent, not much flowering right now. The tall coreopsis look like they're about to start. Spiderwort in the purple there. Lots of big blue stem, doing just fine with the drought. Cup plant, some of it was looking sad with the drought, but I think this rain will perk it right back up. And these Siberian sea peaches, there's a few peaches on these this year. I don't know if they'll carry them throughout the season because of the drought we're in, but it'd be neat if I get 1 or 2 fruits off of there. That would be cool to try, and I will definitely replant the seeds. Some of these are aborting, these are little duds here, but it's putting on some pretty good growth, surprisingly. This cultivar autumn olive looks very rough. God, it looks chlorotic and drought stressed. I did cut a pretty good sized branch off of it, but that doesn't appear to have been enough to save it. So maybe this rain will kind of pull it back through. This little clove currant here also does not look good. And that little gooseberry there does not look good. So I've been watering all this stuff, but it's just been a kind of a brutal early summer, not very favorable for things. Let's see, looking over here, I will show, I don't walk over here usually. I have a persimmon tree that I planted here. Originally this was a chestnut in this spot, but the chestnut died back on several occasions, so I knew it might not be long for the world. So I did plant a mulberry in here some years ago to be a partner and replace it if it didn't work out, and I'm glad I did. So this was I think this is from a Grant Schultz persimmon. It's got some oozy stuff here where I made these cuts. But what I want to show you here is this graft, and this is the cultivar Gordon. I think that's got another name. I don't want to misspeak, so I won't guess what it is. But anyway, that's got some good growth, and that's looks like a bark graft on both sides, and so that'll heal that little wound over probably this summer. I'll cut off whichever one of these is the weaker stem and let that grow. I didn't graft this side, but I did clip off most of the growth to put more energy toward my grafted piece. So yeah, I've had some luck with persimmon grafts this year so far, and some have not worked out. It's been a little disappointing, but it's a learning process. I'd never done persimmons really before, or never done them successfully. So live and learn. Some of the wood blew the graft off because it was growing so vigorously, which I was not expecting. So I should have taped those things up and secured them with additional tape. This pear film didn't hold them. This pear tree looks okay this year. It's got some fruit. Will have to be thinned a bit more. This poor little leaf linden here was looking real rough yesterday. The leaves are turning yellow and some may be falling off, but it's just about to flower. Let me see if I can get out of the sunlight here and give you a better view of it. Maybe it's just the bracty things that are turning yellow. The leaves that don't look too terrible, but that'll be flowering sooner or later. Little yellow-leafed Nanking cherry. Over here, I have a good graft over here to show. This is, well, 2 that are decent. This is another Nijiseki pear onto calorie. This was a cleft graft on this instance. And this one is my best growing, oh shit, it's got a problem. Damn, what the hell? My best growing gumi onto autumn olive, but the tip of it looks like it's dying for some reason. So I've got to come check that out and maybe give it some more water. I have been watering it some, but it's grafted down here somewhere. It's grown at least 14, 16 inches since then, so that's encouraging. Kind of what the garden looks like up here. The ground cover here, this fuzzy stuff is downy sunflower. I had to think about that for a second. That's a neat, kind of knee-high perennial sunflower. That's really cool. I had one flower on my medlar tree this year, but I don't expect to see fruit on that. That's been kind of a disappointing tree overall. This poor little sad peach tree, it did have a fruit or two. Yeah, I guess it still has a couple. This poor thing. Look at these sad fruit. I'm gonna pick this off. It's just got all kinds of problems. Now this gum that comes out, you can actually chew on that. It doesn't have any flavor, really. It doesn't taste like peaches, unfortunately, but if you're bored, you could gnaw on that while you're walking around the garden. This little leaf linden's never flowered and also doesn't look too hot, but it's hanging in there. And we've just finished, about a week or 10 days ago, we finished the flowering for these false indigo. That smelled amazing when those were in flower. Still catch a little whiff of it every now and again, but not much. My nursery area, got a lot of things potted up, and I got rid of some plants, but I've had a problem suddenly this year with chipmunks have discovered the nursery, and they're really causing me a lot of problems. I think deer have come through and gnawed these sunchokes and things that they like to eat. They've clipped them off. But these normal beds that I grow in, these raised beds, something was coming and digging up all these nut seeds, hazelnuts, chestnuts, whatever, walnuts, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I put the camera out a couple times, finally got some video, and it was chipmunks. And they can get right through this chicken wire here, unfortunately. So they have just been tearing this stuff up, and I've lost almost all the good chestnuts that I had, my precious ones. The only ones that are still sort of half alive are these American chestnut seedlings from the special tree in Pawpaw. So I'm really praying these don't all get killed, because I don't have any more seed. And then this is another special one that they've tried to kill a few times. This is a variegated Drought nut, a heart nut, Japanese walnut hybrid, or I'm sorry, Japanese walnut butternut hybrid from this guy Jim Somerville's majestic, amazing tree in Otsego, Michigan. So yeah, this bed is mostly a failure because almost everything's been killed. Everything on this side was killed off. Lost dozens and dozens of chestnuts and hazelnuts. This little bed here, this is the chickapin chestnuts, and germination's a little spotty. I don't know why the middle part here is not germinating very well, but there's some alive, and they're starting to reach the canopy here, and I see that something's already clipped that one off, probably a deer. So yeah, I'm excited to have some seedlings of those at least. I'm gonna have to build a cage around this whole thing to with a roof and everything out of hardware cloth to exclude the goddamn chipmunks. So this beautiful rambling native rose I have here put on a lot of new growth here because I did an experiment where I coppiced an entire chestnut bush down to the ground, took off every stem I could find, which is hundreds, and to see how they would regrow. And they're regrowing okay. It took them a little while to start, but now they seem to be taking off, and the deer are munching them. Deer really like any tender new growth. You can see this is a oak tree that was cut off and coppiced, and the deer really like to browse that tender stuff. But yeah, this wild rose has some drought stress and maybe dieback there, but that's going to be a real show here in a couple of weeks when that's flowering. So we'll go over here, another nursery area. Clove currant looking a little sad, but it's got some fruit on it this year. So this bed here, these look a little chlorotic. This is willow, type of willow, and a new type of elderberry called medicine wheel. And I've got some persimmons, but I had a bunch of nut trees down there. Those are almost all pulled out or dead. The burrowing kind of action of these damn chipmunks. Yeah, they just dig randomly everywhere. And so other beds that I've made, these are some new experimental beds I did using these boxes to see how that worked. And I would say so far it's not working that great. They dug up most of the nuts in this one. These are more Drought nuts. The hazelnuts in this were entirely dug up and eaten. Hazelnuts in that one were entirely dug up and eaten. And even if one sprouts and grows for a bit, they will still dig it up and clip it off and eat the nut. These grapes, Vigoro grapes, not really showing much growth. They keep getting dug into also. American persimmons not looking too hot. This is an air potato. It looks like it's found the pokeweed, and the deer are eating the pokeweed. Interestingly, they're browsing it up high here. So yeah, there's air potatoes, and I think there's groundnuts going through here too. They're kind of reaching for the sky. So in this garden, here's some more. I planted some of the Drought nuts in the ground because I had a lot of the seed. So I did this as an experiment, and they dug a bunch of these up too. But they're doing a little bit better here than average. So I've got a few red currants here and there, black currants. Some of it's getting lost in the Sea of Monarda. Deer eating off all the foliage of this nice red currant from my friend Russ. Here's a little nice, I think it's called flame willow. Here's a red currant, or maybe it's a pink currant. I don't know if these get dark red or not. Oh, they're falling off. Let me taste one. I bet they're sour. Maybe they have problems. Pretty sour. Edible though. Now, yeah, Tuna sinensis tree growing pretty well. Excuse me. A little sun scorch looks like on this. What is this thing called? Aralia elata, the Japanese angelica. Looks like the leaves look kind of scorched there. So I'm gonna walk through. I'll show you some grafts I did of pawpaws and things. Pawpaws will not be leafing out yet, but some apples and pears that I did definitely are growing well. So yeah, I think the grass is already looking just a little bit happier than it was yesterday from that, I'd say, 1/3 of an inch or so we had of rainfall last night. I can feel the ground is definitely softer that I'm walking on. It was extremely hard. This is that wild quinine plant. I should have been giving this some water because it looks pretty burned up this year. That was a hugelkultur bed. You'd never know that, but that's what it started as. Have not seen much better results with hugelkultur beds than any other soil at my garden. So here's a nice old pawpaw from probably 12 years ago, and it's growing good. This one I don't think got ambrosia beetle damage this year, surprisingly. It's about the same size as the other one that did have ambrosia beetle damage. But what was I going to show you? Oh, there's some root sprouts that I grafted onto. So here's one. This is the cultivar IXL, whatever that means. Must stand for something extra large, maybe, Illinois? I don't know. And here are some root sprouts. We've got Sweet Virginia there and Shenandoah there. So if one of these takes, we've got a double stem situation. If one of them takes, we will cull the other one and chalk it up. You know, maybe we could collect more signwood depending on how well it grows this year, if it grows. Here we've got Davis pawpaw onto another root sprout. Of this one, this is the one that did have the ambrosia beetle damage, but I cut there was a branch that was dying here. I cut that off, and the rest of the tree, I don't know, it's still got its leaves, so let's hope that it can pull through. Some trees seem to be able to kind of shake off the ambrosia beetle damage and continue to live, but we'll see about that one. I hope it can. If not, we've got the root suckers. This is a patch of those golden black raspberries, but they look rough because it's been so dry and I've not watered any of this stuff, so that I don't think I'm gonna have much of a harvest there. Here's an oikos pawpaw doing okay, and this was a graft. I just pulled a flower off this last night actually, because this was the Aromatnaya quince onto wild calorie pear. Here's the calorie pear foliage. The Aromatnaya fuzzy leaves, but it had a flower right there. It was very pretty. Took a picture of it, but I didn't want to force the poor thing to try to flower at that young stage of the graft, so that's been pulled off. Here's another Gumianta autumn olive. This is a thin scion piece here, but that was the graft there, and it's almost growing out of this tube here, so that's a good 11 inches or so of growth there. Another pawpaw graft here. Let's see what we have. Overlease, and in a couple cases I used scion wood that was from a year and a half ago, where it was basically 2nd-year old scion wood, so I don't have high hopes for some of that stuff, but it's experimental. It still looked okay. It was still kind of green in the scratch test. So here again, this is not like the main trunk. This can become the main trunk if this does not take. Here is a different, this is a Gumianta autumn olive graft onto a larger shrub. This is a few years old, and it's not really doing much. It's just barely, you know, kind of funky looking. I don't expect that to live necessarily. Another pawpaw graft. This is Davis onto something, and I think I grafted one over there, and that one of those root sprouts as well, but I'm not going to walk over there. So, oh, this chestnut, or not chestnut, catalpa area, this was my coppice concept. So I ended up cutting out about every other tree so that the taller trees had more light and room. And interestingly, we're getting this nice, pretty vigorous regrowth on the ones that were cut, which is cool. So these could be snapped off and used for mulch. That's a great mulch pump, sort of, out of the ground. That's kind of neat to see. And then a couple of these are large enough to be flowering, and these are really nice flowers. They are unusual, kind of asymmetrical, and they smell great. I mean, they have a faint smell, but it's very nice. Not overpowering. But yeah, this area feels a little bit better this year, giving these trees a little bit more light to go with. A couple of really small, teeny tiny oikos plum trees here that are just barely still alive. I'm kind of amazed they're still alive. The bumble bud. These grafts over here, I really need to put some cages. I guess this one's still sort of alive, taller than me, or about as tall as me. That one has been totally eaten off to nothing. That one is just barely alive. These were 3 grafts of the same kind of pear last season. I showed those in my videos. Kefir. And so the graft union looks rough there, but that's the whip and tongue graft. And then it grew pretty vigorously, but with no cage, the deer, they really just seem to favor that tender new growth of a graft more than anything. So I've been putting impromptu cages over things, and the way it's so windy now has me a little scared because I don't know, some of my protection measures are a little half-assed. So this area is a area with a lot of complexity and diversity, a lot of apple and pear seedlings that showed up from the animals, and I've grafted some. So this was one pristine apple. Where's the graft? There behind my fingers. Don't remember what type of graft, maybe a cleft, but it's grown a good 10 inches probably. And then I grafted a little pawpaw sucker over here. What is this one? Tay2. That's a funny name, but here's a graft done about a week ago. This is one of my champion hazelnut bushes, super productive type. Love this one. This may be the mother plant of that pawpaw root sprout that we just saw a minute ago. Here's an apple that could be grafted. This whole thicket behind me is that wild goose plum. Another pear that could be grafted with 2 stems. Probably got browsed off by the deer here and then regrew 2 stems. And here was one I had to cover because the deer clipped off the whole thing. This was Nijiseki onto wild pear, and it was up, you know, maybe as tall as my hand, and then the deer clipped it off, so I had to put that cage over it. And then we've got too many things growing too close together here, but this is a candy crisp apple with cedar apple rust, looks like. So I mean, we know that's susceptible. Right now this autumn olive is kind of giving a little cover to keep it out of the deer's field of view. And speaking of deer, here is a cage put over something because the deer ate the top off of this, and this also has cedar apple rust. And what is this one? If we can see the tag, I'll probably have it documented. Oh, maybe this is also candy crisp, so same, that explains the cedar apple rust. So whichever one of these is the better graft, we'll keep it, because we don't need that many apple and pear trees in a close proximity. This is the Romatnia quince. Looks like a whip and tongue graft there, and I don't know what kind of a graft here, maybe a bark inlay graft there, and again kind of a half-assed cage thing to keep the deer. And that one is flowering, look at that. So jammed in there that I can't really get to it, but I really don't want to let that fruit or try to fruit at that size. This was a successful graft from last year. I actually had to cut a bunch of the top off because it was so tall and so floppy that I thought it was going to break itself off, which I'm glad I did that. It's got some great branching to it, and we'll just let one of these more vertical pieces be the new central leader. We'll do some pruning sometime. Kefir pear, whip and tongue, 522. So there's the graft there, and it's, you know, a little funky. I think there was some tape that was binding it up a bit, but now it'll outgrow that, I think. This is a volunteer tulip tree. Deer really hitting that pretty hard. And interesting, you know, some of these young sassafras sprouts have these very reddish color leaves, which is neat. Okay, 24 minutes in. Try to make it a little bit quicker over here. Don't know, there's some grafts of some apples and pears in here, but I'm not going to go show those. The sea buckthorns are not growing very well. I've had deer coming and breaking off some major branches of my chestnut trees, so I have had to do some pruning. I've done some clipping. This chestnut's in flower. This is the Dick Winkle original chestnut that I had. Doesn't look super hot with the leaf growth. This one up here looks a little bit better. They're larger leaves. but this had some, I think the deer broke off this branch here, so I had to cut it. Probably should cut it back all the way to that. A little bit of a funky growth habit here, and the deer are clipping all this stuff off. It's tender growth. But yeah, it's got flowers there. Some things have been breaking off in the wind, so like I've had some black locust and other things. You know, you get too much succulent kind of growth in a windstorm. There is a black locust that broke off. I should show you back here too. This is the first time for everything. This is the first time I've seen fruit, or what appear to be fruit, on one of my cornelian cherries, which is a milestone. So you can see somewhere in there and here a couple little fruits here and there, so that's exciting. These trees have probably been here for almost 10 years, so yeah, there's a few little fruits. I don't know if that one over there has any, probably not, but at least one of these got caught, so that's very cool. Another nice chestnut, or young chestnut, that the deer snapped the top off, so I've got to protect that a bit better. These fuzzy sumacs here, these are the staghorn sumac, and these are about, well, kind of flowering now, just starting to flower. See a couple little bugs there. It has a little bit of a sweet smell. So yeah, these flower I think just a bit earlier than the winged sumac, which also we'll be seeing any moment. Nice tall chestnut there. If I were to walk around back here, you'd see some mulberries probably fruiting. I did graft some mulberries over here this year, but that was with the wrong signwood. The signwood was last year's signwood. Oh, hold on, bud. There we go. There's a bird stuck in that little cage for a minute. I used the wrong signwood from a year ago, stupidly, so that was not as fresh as it should have been, and consequently did not really thrive or take. But I redid it with fresh signwood, and I'm hoping that some of those seem to be taking. So, speaking of grafting, apple tree, this one has been in decline, it looks like, for a year or two. I don't know, it's never had much vigor. And I think I did finally solve the puzzle of what variety this one is. It's a large apple. It's got major bug problems. This is a black limber twig, I think I saw from a photo from like 2016 or 17 when I grafted it. Don't even remember where the graft union was, probably somewhere along here. I used that stupid tool probably for that, not like a real graft, so that's why it's not that great. And then this one over here is like, I don't know, Liberty or one of those probably disease resistant ones. But I sawed a big branch off, or a couple big branches this year, so there's a big one at the stump there, and I did this one just as kind of a grafting demo, but it's not really taking and growing much, so I don't know if it's going to survive. This is a Grimes Golden, so we'll see. Don't have high hopes for that. And you can see as they grow, there's a little bit of air pocket that's kind of exposed here and there along the thing, so that's not ideal. These large wound type grafts, it's hard to get it totally covered and sealed up well. I mean, I guess you could use plastic bags or something, might be better than just relying on wax or things that are kind of malleable and expandable, but don't necessarily keep elastic or keep covered. I did a graft on this. Was a double stem chestnut. I think that's Euro something chestnut maybe. It grew up, it died to the ground, and it regrew multiple branches, and so I did a graft onto it, probably 10 days ago or so. That's that. I don't think it's showing much. I mean, the buds might be swelling just a little bit, so we'll see. But if that takes, that's with the Dick Winkle chestnut we saw a minute ago. I will cut this other one down, or maybe let it be double trunked for a while to see if I can figure out what kind of nuts the parent tree has. It might be good, you never know. This garden here looks kind of quiet for the moment, but these tall coreopsis are about to set off. Looks like the prairie dock is about to flower at about 3 feet height or less there. It's kind of surprising. Compass plant actually doesn't look too bad this year. It's going to make some flowers shortly. I've got some wild hairy vetch climbing on that 9-bark, and we've got some wild pea there climbing on it. That side. Here's another little chestnut that the deer broke off one of the major branches, and here's one of my precarious graft protectors, but those buds look like they might be swelling a little bit, so we'll see them. That's the same Winkle chestnut there. And over here, still got some late flowers on these false indigo, just the very tail end of them, but they're about done. I wanted to show a couple of grafts here. So this is a Antecalary pear. This was one of those grafts with that cheap tool that people get from Amazon. Let's see if I can focus here and get it exposed right. So you see it's got a weird shape to it. Let me come around the other side. And it never has healed up super well. That's from that dumb $20 tool from Amazon. I don't know why the thing has such a strange growth habit. It's growing very horizontally for a pear. Sorry for the focus. So don't have much in the way of hope for this tree. The variety is lost, but hopefully I took a picture of it when I did it a couple years ago. Or we'll just wait and see what it turns out to be. So here is a mulberry graft. This looks like a double, maybe bark inlay type of graft. I'm gonna have to cut this tape off soon since it looks like, you know, the grafts are they're leafing out, getting some good growth. And maybe you can see, I pinched all the flowers out that I was able to see. But you know, these little proto flower things there, we don't want to let those become flowers because it's too much to ask. And then I need to cut this other redundant, sorry for the focus, other redundant trunk off and let all the energy focus to this. This is a really shitty cage, it's kind of just sitting on there at an angle. But it seems to be doing the job for the moment to keep the deer from munching that stuff off. I need to get a, what they call those T-post and straighten it out. So over here, not much to see, although you can smell the chestnuts blooming. This tall timber chestnut is blooming, and the little chinkapin chestnuts are blooming. And so there's that smell if you like it or don't like it. Here it is. So, see if I can focus. Come on. So yeah, these are the flowers, the male catkins of chestnuts. They have this kind of appearance. There's little weird black bugs on them. Probably honeybees and all kinds of things are attracted to these. You know, they get something out of it. Don't know how much they're necessarily moving the pollen around. I think most of it is done by wind. But these little deals here, those are the female flowers. And they will receive pollen from the other trees. So they could be getting pollinated by this tall chestnut back here. Come on, focus. They could be getting from this other chinkapin chestnut here, which is a bit, maybe just a bit later in flowering, a day or two. There's a medium-sized chestnut there that's more of a Chinese chestnut. So yeah, we'll see what's what. And I'm really curious about the seedlings of these chinkapins, what they're gonna be like. You have to wait 5 or 10 years to see what form they take and what the nuts are like. This is a grafted persimmon. This is called Dean. This looks like a bark inlaid graft. This was probably done a month ago or so, and it's got some nice growth. I think this cage is not going to be tall enough to keep the damn deer off of it. I need to figure something out, but that's a beautiful, beautiful growth on that. Nice color. Down the way there's not much to see. There's some more hazelnuts, pecans, or not hazelnuts, pecans, persimmon, apple, pecan here. Now things feel a little bit different here since I've cut a lot of these wild black cherry down, so you can see the trunk. I did this late winter. There's some regrowth. The deer will probably love to eat that stuff. But getting more light to my pecan tree over there. And these winged sumacs are not quite to the flowering time yet, but they will be getting there soon. I'm gonna keep walking here, show some pawpaws. I did graft a couple of branches of some of these. Some of these had more than one trunk, and they've been hurting in this drought too. So let's see this one here. Did kind of a, you know, a T2, sort of a side branch. We've got a flowering catalpa here. Beautiful, love those flowers. So cool. And then I did but you can see these catalpas grow so quickly, and the growth is so tender that whenever we get a little bit of wind, it snaps things off, and you get a lot of stuff on the ground. So it's actually a great mulch plant for that reason. It's good to have it around other stuff. And did I graft anything onto this? Doesn't look like it. I think I did one over here though. Let me crawl through the brush here. This is Taylor. I think that may be related to Tay2. That looks like a lip and tongue graft. Too early to tell if that is doing anything. How things look over here, hedgerow, some of it looks okay. Some of these bushes were not mowed down, so those are the larger ones. And some of them that were mowed down, you know, varying degrees of suffering. This apple here. Cut the main branch off. All the rest of this stuff is my grafted variety of who knows what, probably Liberty or Enterprise or one of those few supposedly disease resistant ones. And I had to cut well, this was a grafted red leafed apple, I think, red fleshed. And this was a graft from last year. This was a bark inlay graft ×2 of pears. I can't remember. I have it definitely noted somewhere. But that's just about to heal over. You can see probably within this season it might close that wound entirely, which is cool. But I had to cut the top of this off too because it was also like way too much growth too quickly, and I haven't been fertilizing it. You know, it gets a little bit of fertility from this false indigo, and you can see that this was coppiced in the winter, and that's why it's got all this tender flush of straight new growth. So that is a form of fertility, but it's not really like dumping fertilizer on something. This chestnut here looks like it died from blight earlier. It's got some issues. I think that's probably blight or some kind of disease problem, maybe that root problem, don't know. But I did, just for shits, I grafted the Winkle chestnut onto here as an experiment, so I don't expect this to necessarily live, but we'll see. It's showing a little growth because it's kind of bursting the tape there. And then I want to, more catalpa leaf drop there. Not much to see. I'm sorry if the focus is out. Not much to see over there. Hazelnut that's got some dying branches from the drought. This chestnut area has not had anything done with it. It looks terrible. There's probably very few of those still alive. Want to show, I think I realized that I did some direct seeding this year of, sorry to cut myself off, some direct seeding of those Drought nuts in places where these little pink flags are, so probably a dozen or so of those, and we'll see if some of those grow in situ. They might do well. So this walnut, for years I thought it was just a black walnut, or it was supposed to have been I think an English walnut or something, but then I thought it died back to the graft and it was just a black walnut. But I think it's not a black walnut. I think it is an English or something, because it's, not that I'm looking at it, it looks a little different than black walnut, and the twigs and everything look a little bit different. So got touched by late frost here, but I'm excited to have maybe an English walnut growing where I thought I didn't have one. Here's a gumi onto autumn olive, and this one doesn't have the kind of vigorous growth that some of them have had, but it is alive, carmine gumi. So we'll see. I'm hoping that can pull through. I think I direct seeded some of those Drought nuts here and there. There's an English one that I ordered from a nursery here. Just planted that. Well, the foliage kind of blends in with the sumac leaves and looks the same. Now, probably, maybe it may not show up well, but all the brambles in this area, the dewberries, have this terrible orange, bright orange rust, and it's kind of too far along in the season to see it very well, but it's super vivid orange. And so I'm afraid that's going to eventually get all over my whole property. I really don't know what to do with this. This is another, I think, English walnut or something that's not a black walnut. So no fruit or flowering just yet, but maybe soon at this size. It's got some kind of gall thing bothering it there. But yeah, that rust is a little bit of a concern because I do have other brambles that I do care about, and you know, me walking around or mowing or whatever, I'm probably picking up the spores of that stuff and carrying it around the whole place. So I don't want to spray fungicides or anything, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Oak savanna area we're getting into here. Things are growing okay, although it looks pretty sparse out here. I planted a bunch of chestnuts sort of from here all the way along the western edge of the property and sort of the southern edge of the property up here, but it's been so dry that and plus they got frosted by a late frost, I think May 27th or 8th, 26th, somewhere in there, in that vicinity. So they were not happy about that, and they were planted this last fall, so we'll see how they do. Some of them might perish. American plum, a lot of bug problems on these. American plum thicket back there. This one was transplanted and spaded out, so this one's pretty fruitful. I don't know if I'll walk all the way back here, maybe waste of time. So just to show you these half-dead chestnuts that I planted, but that's what a lot of these new tree tubes are these younger chestnuts, or some of them are hazelnuts that I planted 2 or 3 years ago. Like this is a hazelnut probably planted 3 years ago. That one maybe 2 years ago. But I've been planting more shrubs in the oak savanna because it was a little bit too open and barren for my taste. So this kind of area is very dominated by little blue stem, these kind of mounds of grass, and I feel like if anyone ever touches a match to this property, the whole thing's going to go up in flames because of all this tinder type stuff here. This is a little persimmon I planted last fall. I planted about 10 of them. That were good seedlings from my collection that I grew in the boxes. Another one over there. So I did some persimmon grafts about a month ago, and this one doesn't look too fantastic, but it is alive. It's ennis seedless, I think. And so I'll show you a few of the grafts that appear to be taking so far. I did a lot of wood chip mulching back here this spring because I really want to get these persimmons kind of going. They've been just dragging for years, and I wanted to, I'm so excited about persimmons as a crop. Gordon persimmon here has got a little bit of growth coming out. So I really want to try to do more for these things. So mulching was the logical first step. Nice reddish growth. These are oikos. Beautiful ornamental color on these things. Kind of a weeping habit almost, the way maybe the wind's knocking it over. A couple more grafts to show. This little guy here is Dean. I've had a couple grafts of Dean that are taking. So yeah, I did some where I did it onto much smaller rootstock and some onto larger, more established trees. The ones on smaller trees, and this is kind of a medium one here, this is Proc. Proc is a good classic variety. Looks like a bark inlay graft, maybe not showing with the focus, but a couple inches of growth on there anyway. So yeah, the persimmon area kind of goes to about here, and we're looking at it. This is looking north now. Got a few bigger ones here and there, and some of the bigger ones are big enough to start suckering out. And so in a few cases I've grafted onto the root suckers. Now this one had flowers this year, but I don't think, I want to say it's probably a male. Like I feel like most everything I've seen has seemed kind of like a male and not anything definitively female. You know, all the grafts that I'm doing, those should be fruitful in a few years, but yeah, I don't know. The flower judging is a bit tricky to me still. A Nanking cherry with a few little fruits on it. It got some bug problems. Not very big fruit. Probably not like a full-size worm in there, but I'll pop it in my mouth just to see. A little tart. Pretty good. Persimmons. More. Let me show you more grafts if I can find them. Some trees that I thought might fruit haven't yet. So this tall one over here by the pine tree has not, or didn't flower. Oh, this is a coppice example. So I think the tall stems of this were cut to they regrew 2 years ago. Then I thinned out about half the stems, and so that's kind of an interesting mix of first and second year stems there. So it's sending up a bunch of straight new growth this spring, and so maybe I'll cut the older stems out this winter, and then the ones that grew this year will flower next year, so you can kind of keep it going in perpetuity and still get nice straight material if you want it to work with for crafts or something. So here is a graft of Sweet Seedy Surprise. This one I got from Dennis Straw. And it's, again, hard to cage these things because the ground was so hard I could hardly get a stake in the ground. But yeah, anyway, that's growing a little bit, so that's good. Another red leafed thing. Yeah, this persimmon, I'm amazed it does not have flowers that size, but I guess it's a late bloomer. So we're getting pretty long here, almost 45 minutes. The persimmon area kind of ends down in this vicinity, and I don't know if it's like 40 or 50 feet wide, and I don't remember how deep, a couple 100 feet or something, maybe less than that. I have to refer to my map. I'm not good at just guessing distances. So anyway, that's what the garden is looking like now. Been in a drought, not the worst drought I've seen, but it's been a drought. Officially we're in like stage 3 of the drought, not like 3 of 5 or something. So this rain we're getting, earlier they said it was 6/10 of an inch total, and then we got about 1/3 of an inch last night, and now it's saying we might get it over another inch this afternoon. So if that happens, that'll be wonderful. We could really use that. I would not complain at all. Look at the damage on that making cherry. Yeah, wow, these are real bad. Just junk. But the birds lead them. So anyway, thanks for watching my shitty videos, and hope you got to sleep okay and are having a nice dream. And I will make another one in a couple of weeks when things look a little different. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.